Always true.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
Njegova ekselencija Naser bin Hamad Al-Kalifa, katarski veleposlanik u Hrvatskoj, karijerni je diplomat sa statusom ministra, što i ne čudi s obzirom na iznimno bogatu diplomatsku karijeru koja traje preko 40 godina. Katarske interese zastupao je na svim kontinentima, u svim važnijim državama i političkim centrima. U njegovom zagrebačkom uredu razgovarali smo o situaciji u zaljevu, blokadi Katara kao i o političkim igrama globalnih sila. Your Excellency, thank you for your time for Al Jazeera. Let's kick off with the situation in the Gulf region, particularly in almost 3 years ago. Saudi Arabia imposed a land, air and sea blockade on Qatar, together with Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates and Egypt. Is that blockade coming to an end? What's the solution?
First of all, thank you for coming here, and you are always welcome. As a matter of fact, there is nothing new, except what His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, said a few weeks ago. The situation is still as it is. Qatar was able to sail safely, and today Qatar is in much better situation than before. Before the blockade. Of course, in the long run, there has to be a solution, but a solution needs confidence building, needs people to sit together and needs them to dissect all the issues of differences and try to come to a solution which will benefit everybody. His Highness the Emir, many times, he said if they move one step, we will move 1,000 steps toward solving this crisis, which is really affecting not only the governments, but affecting the region, families, and, especially in the Gulf. Egypt is really out of it, it's only for other reasons. But when you talk about Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, you have the same family, the same tribe, the same people, intermarriages, uncles, aunts, and your relatives all over. I have my relatives in all these 3 other countries, and it is very difficult, for a lot of families, especially elder people, when they cannot see their relatives unless they have to fly to Kuwait or fly to Oman or fly to other countries like Turkey or maybe to Europe. So the situation is stable. There's nothing new.
But you mentioned the question of trust, confidence. Where did the confidence gone in when the blockade is shockingly imposed?
Well, we were all shocked when the blockade was imposed on Qatar because, His Highness just a few days before was, in Riyadh in a meeting which was attended by all the GCC and attended by more than 50 Muslim countries with the President of the United States. A few days later, we woke up, and things changed. And of course, it started with the fabrication of somebody, was able to get into our national news agencies and fabricated things which never happened. But that is now behind us. We are talking about 3 years past almost. And people now, they became accustomed. And the fear is in the long run, you are building psychological barriers which are not good, not only for Qatar, not good for the whole region, because these countries, especially the GCC, they have the same interests, they have the same resources, they have the same people, they have the same threat from outside, and their their stability depends on them working together.
It's going to be a huge challenge to build that confidence again.
Yes.
Once the blockade is over. I
Yes.
suppose it will be eventually.
Well, eventually it will. We all, at one time or the other, we will not be all here. Even the people who are involved in, the political leaders who are involved in such very grave decision to take. You have to work slowly. You have to build trust. Kuwait, Oman, and the United States, and our other European friends and other countries, they are led by Kuwait, of course. They are trying to minimize the crisis and bring everybody together. Hopefully, they will succeed. What I am afraid of, not as a diplomat, but as a political scientist and somebody who studied international relations, is that we are waiting for another crisis in the region to come together. And this will not give us time to look into the real issues and come together to understanding whereby we solve all the problems. So we build a true trust in each other, because without a trust, you cannot build you cannot build anything. So this is what we hope. But I am, with all the issues around us, we are surrounded in the GCC countries. We are surrounded by fires. You have Yemen, you have Afghanistan. You have what's happening in Iraq, what's happening between the U.S. and Iran, what's happening in Syria, what's happening even in Libya. We need to work together and help others around us to solve their problems and create stability for everybody. You cannot be safe in your house if your neighbors' houses are on fire. So this is the way Qatar look at the issue.
Situation is very unstable, as you mentioned it. Also, you mentioned that you have vast experience in diplomacy. You are a senior career diplomat. How do you see that situation, what you mentioned in the region, when you view it from the point of geopolitical interests? What change came with the presidency of Donald Trump?
Well, you see, the U.S. foreign policy is not really built on who is the president. The U.S. has its, interest all over the world. I mean, in Europe, you have, American bases everywhere. You have their interest. In our region, they are all over the region, and they have a lot of interest. And for us, the U.S. is one of our strongest allies. So, we have common interest. We have common interest in stability for the region, in making sure that oil and gas will flow to the world market, so nobody will be hurt, not in our part of the world, but in the rest of the world. So, sometimes people blame a president, and it is very. We are living in a very polarized world, but we have to look at all the other actors. We have a lot of actors beside the U.S. who are involved in the whole region. You cannot.
But if you would talk to all the actors in the region, everyone would say, we want stability and peace.
Yes.
And we don't have stability and peace.
Yes. Well, look. Things started really to be unstable in our part of the region. First of all, in 1981 till 88, the war between Iraq and Iran. Then, in 1990, the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. And then came the other crisis, which really, until now, we are all paying the price for it. And that is the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Because what that invasion did is it destroyed the geopolitics balance of power in the region, because Iraq as a state was completely destroyed. So, when you have one major power in a region destroyed, somebody will come and fill in, because the American and their other partners who went into Iraq, they just went in, destroyed the state, and then they left. So Iraq was completely open country, no army to defend it, no security to make sure that the bad guys are taken care of. And until today, I mean, if you look at all the problem in our region, it really stemmed from the 2003 invasion. How to restore it, how to rebuild that region, how to convince political leadership in that region and beyond, because there are other beneficiaries, major power, powerful countries. Everybody has interest in that region, oil and gas and other resources. Instead of making it the most stable and beneficial to its people and region around it, it's really creating crisis after crisis and suffering. And so we need for regional power and local power to accept the international conventions, international law, the Charter of the United Nations, which they are all members, and they were accepted to be member to the United Nations because they obliged themselves to abide by the Charter of the United Nations. Unfortunately, that does not exist.
I just wanted to ask you, do you have the feeling that the boundaries has shifted? Because 10, 15, 20 years ago, Security Council was a major player, major stage for discussing situations in the worldwide. Today, no one asks Security Council, no one mentions United Nations. Major powers deal with the situations how they see fit.
Unfortunately, the Security Council is ruled by 5 permanent members: the U.S., China, Russia, Britain, and France. The Security Council succeeds when these 5 member states agree with the others in the Security Council that they will uphold the resolution of the United Nations, of the Security Council. Okay, that is the responsibility of the Security Council. It's world peace, security, and peace. Okay, unfortunately, because of the squabble among them, no decision has been passed, and even when they were passed, they weren't acted upon. So what happened? We are living in a world where, if you look at the history of Europe, you are looking at, it's like looking back at 1936, 1939. Honest. I mean, some people who don't study history, they don't understand that. Yes, history does not repeat itself, but men repeat the same mistakes. And this is what one can see. There is polarization. The U.S. with its even allies in Europe, the European with the Russian with the American, the Chinese with the American. Everybody. These are the major powers. If they don't accept their responsibility and understand that any war anywhere, any crisis, any major crisis anywhere, it will affect them as well. But you see, men have arrogance. Politicians are the most arrogant people. And then they have some people close by who are, I call them, peacocks, because, they try that, they think they are playing with human destiny, while really they are destroying the world. Not, they have, their role is really just destructive. And this is what one is afraid of. I come from a small country, just like Croatia. For us security is very important. Stability in our region is very important. It's very important for this region. It's very important for us. Besides, yes, we have oil and gas, and there's a lot of resources in that region. But unfortunately, it's becoming a curse. You know, if you look at it, yes, people benefit. They have excellent education, nice cities, medical care, etc. They have ability to travel. But people in the whole region, in our part of the world, they are not sure what tomorrow will carry for them. And this is the problem.
You just made a parallel with the situation in Europe prior to the World War. Yes. You got me worried there.
Well, that is the situation I look at it. As somebody who studied history and international relations and observed the world, it's a mistake, little mistake, and you will have a big war. And then the war will create other wars. And when is the end? You know, it is easy to start any war, but it is difficult to stop it or to understand what is the end game of it. You cannot control it. And, you know, even we look at the, at all the wars going on now. Look at Yemen. Did anybody expect it to take more than 5 years? Nobody. Look at what's happening in Libya. Did anybody expect that after the throw out of Gaddafi and the interest of the international system and the Security Council and everybody, that we will still have a civil war going on, and countries which are supposed to support through the Security Council, supportive of the legitimate government, they are supporting a warlord. Nobody expected this. Did anybody expect it in 2011 that the crisis in Syria will continue till today? Did anyone in 2005, forget the first 2 years of the invasion, forget it. Did anybody expected that in 2005, did anybody expect that Iraq will be in the situation that it has been until now?
15 years.
15 years. So people have to look, today people are busy, with the gadgets and with Netflix and with other little, but people who think, they are very worried. And I am one of them.
You mentioned the situation in Libya, Syria, Yemen, but one of the major situations is relations and situation in Iran. We have some escalation. US killed Qasem Soleimani. In retaliation, Iran launched an attack on American bases in Iraq. Then we had that situation with Ukrainian airplane. How do you see that situation developing in the future? Escalating or, luckily, de-escalating? Because Iran announced that everybody retreated from the nuclear deal. Iran just announced that it will draw out from the nuclear treaty of anti-proliferation treaty. So what's the possible development situation of that situation?
Well, let me just say that we in Qatar, we are very concerned. Iran is our neighbor. Iran is a major country in the region, and the US is our ally. So, and for us, we are against any war taking place in our region. We hope that a solution will come about, and of course, the nuclear deal is dead. Even when some Europeans are trying to dissociate it, it's dead. And I think the hope is that a modified deal, nuclear deal, will be arrived at. His Highness was the first one to go to Iran, and he's in contact with the American president and with other head of states. Our minister went right away. He was sent by His Highness the Amir, and he is in contact with the American, with the Iranian, with everybody. And all the GCC countries, all of them now, they understand that we don't need another war in the region. Another war between the US and Iraq will involve all the neighboring countries, whether they like it or not. This is a fact. Even countries in Central Asia, they will be affected. Turkey will be affected. What about the Gulf, where 90% of their oil and gas go through the Gulf? When if there is a war, it will be filled by airplane and missiles and fleets from all over the world, because oil is the bloodline of the world economy, and everybody will be. So we don't want to have another war. We hope that the American and the Iranian and the others, with the support of others, they will reach some accommodation whereby we create a stable region, whereby Iran is in its border, sovereign country, prospering. Iraq is in its border, sovereign country and prospering. The GCC countries, they solve their problems. They are working together and helping others around them to prosper. The war in Yemen is out to the side, finished, and the Yemenis can work out their differences, hopefully, and with the help of their other Arab brothers and their friends. And hopefully Syria will be more peaceful, and the people of Syria will have a system whereby they feel that they have a role to play, and also in Libya. You see, we live in a region where wherever you look, east, south, northwest, there is a problem, a crisis, a bigger crisis, or a crisis to happen. It needs somebody who make one mistake and things will flare up.
In that light, how do you see the role of the major powers? I mean, US, Russia, and don't forget China.
Well, all these countries, Russia...
China also has economic interests, if nothing else. Their big project, Road and Belt.
Look, all these countries, they have a lot of interest, and they are all our friends. Russia is a neighbor of our region. You see, people don't understand that. It takes less time from any capital in the Gulf to Moscow, okay, than to come to any other country in West Europe or the US or Japan. So all these countries have interest. And the US has a lot of interest also, economic, political, security. And Russia also has a sphere and has its interest, economic, political, and it needs to project itself as a big power. And it is a very powerful country. China has a lot of interest in the region. China depends a lot of its resources for oil and gas and petrochemical industry and fertilizer comes from our region, from the GCC countries. So they are very interested because their economy depends on that region, and they have a lot of investment. So all these major countries, we hope they will understand that stability in our region is good for everybody, because when we are stable, when the region is stable, people invest. They invest in infrastructure, they invest outside. These countries, companies will benefit, their people will find jobs, because if you go to some of the GCC countries, the smaller countries, 90% of the people are not natives. We are minorities among bigger minorities in our region. And of course, that is a plus in terms that we are welcoming societies, and these people helping to deliver some of our needs and help us with some of our projects. But at the same time, when you become the smallest minorities among bigger minorities, you have the fear, which, you know, people always fear. I mean, you know, you look at countries where foreigners in there, among them are less than 1%, and they are fearful, and you read the newspaper and the TV, and you think tomorrow these countries are going to be taken over by less than 1%. What about when you have 90% of the people in your country who are not from your country, but from other countries, and some of these countries, very powerful countries? So, yes, China, Russia, and the US, France, Germany, Britain, and Japan. You know, don't forget Japan depends a lot on the Gulf, and we import a lot from Japan. They all have interest in a stable Gulf region. They have, and I hope they will understand that stability of the Gulf and of the Gulf region depends on the stability of surrounding states. Because if I have fire surrounding my house, I am not safe. Even if I have the best house, it will be destroyed.
With Your Excellency, with the hope in peaceful future and prosperous future, I thank you for your time for Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you, sir.